finish explaining articulatory phonetics. And there's an article there on Moodle written by Xiaonong Chu. And there are some questions about the article on articulatory phonetics. There's some quiz about what's on the article. There's some information, some question about the article also up here on the quiz questions. So that's why you also need to go over the article today, cover it, and make sure that we are all prepared for the quiz. We need to make sure that we are all well prepared for the quiz so that we don't get caught off guard. Now, yes, we defined on Monday afternoon, we defined phonetics, of course. So phonetics and phonology, it's almost the same thing, but it's not exactly the same thing. So phonetics deals primarily with the speech sounds, so the acoustic properties of the speech sound. But phonetics, rather phonology, there's a line in the article, in the true article, the line on the article on articulative phonetics, there's a line that says that phonology picks up where phonetics leaves off. So phonetics and phonology, they're normally always mentioned in the same breath. The reason for that is because they deal primarily with almost the same thing. They deal primarily with speech sound. But again, phonology takes off where phonetics leaves off. So phonology would look at the speech sound, and not just the acoustic properties of the speech sound, but it looks at speech sound in context. It looks at speech sound as meaningful units. Phonology would look at speech sound as they occur in specific languages, in specific human languages. And also there's a line if you read the article on articulative phonetics, there's a line that says that phonetics is to phonology what physics is to chemistry, I think, yeah. And then, yes, so we looked at this, and of course, so this is articulation. By this image on this PPT, I was basically trying to say, to bring your attention to the significance of articulation, in that articulatory phonetics is primarily concerned about articulation. So that is speaking, that is pronunciation. So again, so for articulated phonetics would not necessarily be focusing on segments as meaningful units, or as for articulated phonetics, for instance, wouldn't focus on perception, on speech perception. That's another discipline of linguistics that deals with speech perception. So articulative phonetics is about articulation. And so the oral tract. So in articulatory phonetics, looking at the things within the oral tracts that are responsible for modifying the sound and producing meaningful patterns or meaningful speech units. And then, yeah, so in articulatory phonetics, we look primarily. In fact, in the article that is on Moodle, they say that phonetics had always been articulatory phonetics. So from the very beginning, phonetics had dealt with speaking or with articulation. That has always been the intention of phonetics. It has always been applicative in that sense. But then over time, phonetics became a more formal study, a more academic study, it became more theoretical at some point. But primarily, phonetics is primarily concerned about speech and the nature of speech and how it is produced. Yeah. So articulation, manner of articulation. So so we looked at this on Monday, actually. So manner of articulation, that's basically how speech is produced. Place of articulation, that is a place where speech is produced. And then the important things in articulation, when we speak about phonetics, is, when you speak of phonetics and phonology, we cannot necessarily speak of phonetics and phonology without necessarily speaking about the IPA chart and without necessarily speaking about the vowel trapezium, okay? So the lesson on phonetics and phonology is not complete without mentioning these two things, which are very, 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 very important. And so this is the IPA chart, and I did go over the IPA chart on Monday, explaining the basics of the IPA charts. So on the top here, this is what is referred to. This is where we see the place of articulation, okay? This is where, if you're reading those words at the top right here, that's where we get to see where a particular segment or where a particular speech sound is articulated, or rather where it is produced within the oral tract. And then here on the y-axis, on this column here, on the column on the extreme left, that's a place that shows us the manner of articulation of the speech sounds. Right, and then we said this the phonetic symbols in the left-hand side within the blocks, those ones are voiceless, and then the ones on the right, those ones are voiced. So when you speak of articulation, so there are some forms, there are some speech units that when articulated, there is voicing. So those ones are referred to as voiced. So whenever you say a speech sound and you feel a vibration here in your Adam's apple, if you're a guy, if you feel a vibration here, that means the sound that you're producing, that means it's a voiced sound. But then if you are saying a particular sound, maybe if you are saying this sound, if you say this sound and you touch yourself here and you don't feel any vibrations, that means that sound is actually voiceless. It doesn't have a voice. So so we have voice sound and voiceless sounds in speech. In human speeches. Okay, so a plosive sound, it's a sound that is, when it's produced, it almost sounds like like the word plosive. So if you hear the word plosive, think of something that is explosive or an explosion. So this is a kind of a sound that when produced, it almost sounds like there's an explosion within the oral text when those sounds are produced. And so importantly, this might get a little bit confusing. I'd just like to say that there's another name for a plosive sound in phonetics. Another, the phonemes or the speech units that are sometimes referred to as, that are called plosive, they are called stops as well. So within the IPA chart, sometimes you might see the word stop as a description of the manner of articulation. So stop and plosive, that's basically the same thing. So basically in articulatory phonetics, stop is a synonym of plosive, and of course vice versa. So if a consonant is referred to as a stop, that means it's a plosive consonant. So a plosive consonant, it's a consonant that, when it's produced, like the sound, for instance, that sound is referred to as a plosive because again, it sounds like an explosion. And then